And hello, everybody. How you doing? We are here live. We are going to be talking about this new episode of Tiger King that came out. I believe it was on Sunday. I just got done watching it. Uh, I don't know. It's interesting. I actually liked hearing from some of the people that they went back and talked to. Um, you know, particularly the guy that ran the place. Um, he was kind of like the head. You know, I don't know what you might say. He just kind of ran the park. He was kind of the guy that was there, Johnny on the spot to keep things running. Forget his name right now. And then the other guy without the legs, the guy that has the prosthetic legs. Those two guys, I was really enjoyed hearing from those two. Um, but I'll say, I don't know. There was a lot of interesting little things said in that episode. Number one, there's definitely going to be probably another batch of episodes. It would seem that there must be something in the works because Mr. Finley, who was Joe's first husband, explained that he couldn't reveal what else has been done with his tattoo. The tattoo that he got to cover up the thing that said he was the property of Joe Exotic, that was like right above his junk, basically, right? And he had gotten like a head of a bull, and it wasn't quite. I mean, it didn't quite perfectly cover it up. He said he's gone back and had it fixed. Lionel, haha, that's funny, Sharon. But he said he's gone back since and had it even fixed, and it's all fully done now and stuff. And I guess the tattoo artist has been catching a lot of crap because people were saying he did a bad job and didn't cover everything, which I know what they're talking about in the show. I could tell that he didn't, but that guy had already been sitting there for a long time with that guy running that tattoo needle across a very sensitive area right above his junk, and so they probably did it. They probably did the final, detail and stage in a final stage. Anyway, it's my guess. But my point is he was saying he couldn't do a reveal because at some point he said there will be a reveal. So that tells me that there's at least another real episode being planned. This episode wasn't really an episode. It was some dude. I forget his name. It's anyway, some Hollywood actor guy who decided he'd call up Netflix and say, "Hey, look, let's talk to those people, or whatever, since we're all on lockdown." And so anyway, that's all this thing is. It's just him talking to some of the people from the show. Anyway, as I said, it was interesting in some ways, and it was interesting, like I said, to hear from some of the people. And one of the interesting things, hey Mandy, hey One Strand in the Rav, hey Cat Gamer Girl, hi Jamie. So, wonder why it's called that. I don't know. That's funny. Um, but so yeah. Well, anyway, so I mean, this episode was, him talking to the various parties, and so it was interesting. Obviously the people, the guys from the park and stuff, who were always really, just kind of the keep their head down kind of guys. Didn't particularly care, or to be around a lot of people, or anything like that. Those guys aren't. Those guys are having difficulty with the fame that's coming from the Tiger King. Obviously, you can see Jeff Lowe would be loving it. would be would be loving it if he wasn't looking like the guy who orchestrated a plot for murder for hire to send somebody away so that he would have the park, uncontested. I mean, that's the way it looks. It looks like that's exactly what he did, and he's now all butthurt that it looks that way and everything. It's like, yeah, right, dude. Who's this? Who brought this so-called hitman to the zoo? Oh, that was you, right? Who? Oh, wait. Who was the one that actually Google Earthed Carol Baskin's bike path or bike route? Oh, that was you again. Damn, that was you again. It seems like everywhere I turn, Jeff, you're right there orchestrating this murder for hire. I mean, it looks like you're the one there. And Joe claims you're the one that told him to go get $3,000 out of the register and go and give it to your right-hand man who you brought to the zoo. The guy you hired to work at the zoo. And so when I'm looking at the fact that it does look like Jeff was doing most of the planning, Jeff brought in the supposed hitman, right? And it looks pretty fishy, Jeff. It looks pretty damn fishy. It looks like you were trying to bump Joe out of the way, and so yeah, it looks pretty shady. Now, whether or not Joe, I mean, also in this last final episode, you really finally hear the people cutting loose talking about how Joe was very unscrupulous with the animals, and likely a lot of the charges that were filed by PETA and all those sort of things, those charges were probably valid, and that's probably those charges. I, have a great deal, or I have a reason to believe that they should probably stick after hearing some of the horror stories that I heard from some of the people in this final episode. Joe was a very, very, very violent man, and he would, and from what these people are saying, he wasn't shy on taking it out on the cats at times. So, but whether or not Joe should be in jail for a murder for hire, whether that count should be removed, I think that count's ridiculous in the extreme. I don't believe there ever was a plot for murder for hire, because I believe it was all a rigged game by Jeff Lowe, with his supposed right-hand man as the hitman, and Jeff, the one Google Earthing Carol Baskin's bike route and those sort of things, where it looks like who's actually doing the actual planning here, it looks like Jeff. And if in fact Jeff told Joe to go get $3,000 out of the register and to go and give it to Alan, whatever his face is, if that happened, I mean, then Jeff actually did set Joe up unknowingly for murder for hire. So if that's the case, Joe shouldn't be in jail for murder for hire, but he probably does deserve to be in there for a lot of the other charges, unfortunately. Sorry for anybody that may piss you off when I say that, but most likely, judging by what some of the people who have worked with him for many years said in this episode candidly, it sounds like Joe was mistreating some animals. I need to watch RD video from today. Okay. As soon as I'm done here, I'll do that. I'll check it out. Hey, my buddy Johnny's making some videos right now that are off the charts. He's hot on the trail, of Carol and what happened to Don Lewis, So, but I'll give Rubber Ducky's video from today a look as soon as we're done here. So, I don't think so. I think the whole murder for hire thing was all Jeff Lowe. It was Jeff Lowe's way of framing Joe Exotic for murder for hire, and in doing so, hopefully getting all the other charges to stick. You see? I think this is all Jeff Lowe just trying to bump Joe Exotic out of the picture at the zoo. And that's the way it looks. Carol Baskin is crazy. She's crazy as hell. Listen, folks, when the proof ends up coming out of what happened to Don Lewis, and if, as I suspect, Carol Baskin is responsible, it's going to be a real interesting situation. Because here's the thing. This whole thing wouldn't have become so tragic, right? If not for one thing that Carol Baskin did. She pushed one extra push and made an unreasonable demand. So let me explain what I'm talking about. Joe hated Carol Baskin, but after the trademark thing, Joe was in trouble because they were going to win the trademark war. He was going to have to pay all this money, whatever. So when he finally came down to it, he was willing to deal with them and he wanted to settle it so that it would be done. And so he was actually dealing with them and trying to work it out. Okay. They finally came to an agreement. Okay. They had been going back and forth through a mediator and had an agreement, between Joe and I guess the husband, right? The husband says, okay, we have an agreement with Joe to Carol. We have an agreement. Joe's this and that, blah, 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 what the agreement would be. And Carol Baskin basically said that she wanted one more thing, and that she wanted basically the deed to Joe's mother's house. She wanted Joe's mother's house as collateral. And that was it. Nope. That broke it. That broke the deal. Joe wasn't willing to do that. And that broke the deal. Had she not made that really ridiculous and really, to me, that's beyond. That demand is just beyond. Leave Joe's mother out of it, But had she not done that, she would have been able to settle with Joe, and things would have went back to a peaceful kind of, at least things would have been able to get down to a calmer level again, and Joe would have been able to carry on with business again and work on getting profitable. But instead of, because of the way she did that, and because no deal is reached, and eventually Jeff Lowe comes into the picture and blows the negotiations out of the water, and then takes the park away from Joe. Basically, it sets into motion a series of events that Jeff Lowe is there manipulating to the fullest. And that's what's obvious in this. All right, what are you guys saying over here? They all need to be in a cage. I mean, about the animal abuse, right? And okay. He did it. He did what? Who did what? In my opinion, she is a Black Widow con artist. She's definitely, I don't trust Carol Baskin at all. She strikes me as fake. Every time I listen to her and watch her speak, it just screams out, I am a huge phony. I mean, there may as well be a loudspeaker in the background blaring, I am a huge phony, whenever she talks. Well, by making that demand, I mean, look, things were about to be settled. It would have been settled. He would have been paying them some money because of the trademark thing, and he would have been able to get things kind of back to normal. But instead of what happened is he was getting more and more in debt. Things were getting, more and more crazy around there. He couldn't pay them and do this and that and all that. And then that judgment's hanging over him, and all those things just drove the whole situation where he was driven into Jeff Lowe's arms, and Jeff Lowe does what he does. And basically seals the deal for Joe. Hey, if Joe was abusing animals, Joe was abusing animals. And if you know, and that's if that's the case, he's going to face the music for that. But whether or not there was actually, I question whether or not there was actually a murder for hire here. I believe that this was all smoke and mirrors orchestrated by Jeff Lowe and his hitman, who he brought to the zoo. So far, she seems like someone who just likes to play the victim. She likes control. Yes, she does. She does come off that way at the beginning, Sharon. I'll be honest. And Sharon's only a couple episodes in, folks. But I will say that in the first couple episodes, she just comes off as somebody who likes to play the victim. But once you get to episode 3, you start to go, oh my, holy moly. So, yeah, episode 3 is where the spit hits the fan, as it were. Joe's a special kind of special. Indeed. And that's the thing, you know. I mean, people say, yeah, but he always was talking about killing Carol Baskin. And it's like, yeah, sure he was. But you can even hear the guys in the extra, this final episode that just came out on Sunday that I'm talking about right now. You can hear some of the guys in there going, yeah, Joe said that, but he often said that. He said it to everybody. He'd say, the guy that was there to be filming the reality show, he's like, yeah, Joe came up to me and said, you know, if you go kill Carol Baskin, I'll make you a rich man. It's like it was all a big joke. It's all it ever really was. There was never any actual planning to murder Carol Baskin until Jeff Lowe comes along. Brings along his little henchman, Alan, who is the supposed hitman. And whereas everybody else is just talking about killing Carol, Jeff Lowe gets on his computer and starts Google Earthing the path that she rides her bike on and figuring out where they can snipe her from. That's Jeff Lowe. That's not Joe. That's not anybody else. That's Jeff Lowe. So, anyway. She definitely has told many lies that she can't remember them. Story changes every time she tells it. Unfortunately, she does it on video for us to catch. He didn't have the money to pay a hitman, for crying out loud. Well, that's just it, folks. Any more proof you want? You know how I know? You know how I know that Jeff Lowe told Joe Exotic to go get that $3,000 out of the register and to go give it to Alan? Do you know how I know that's true? Here's how I know that's true. You guys remember there was a confidential informant working there at the zoo. I forget what his name was. I think he started with a C or D or something. Anyway, that confidential informant set it up where Joe met with an undercover, like FBI or whatever, some kind of undercover agent posing as a hitman. And they discussed killing Carol Baskin and all that sort of stuff and whatever and everything. And the state the feds, and they had everything they needed, except with this kind of a crime, you have to have payment made. Payment has to be made in order for the charge to stick. Because apparently, notoriously, juries say not guilty unless there was actual payment made. Well, here's the thing. So he agrees to this whole thing with this federal agent. He doesn't know it's a federal agent. He thinks it's a hitman, and says, "Okay, yeah, well, I'll get you some money." Never pays the guy, and that's Joe. He talks, but he never pays anybody to do it. And that's why I believe Joe when he says, "Oh, well, I just went." He told me to go get $3,000 out of the register and take it to Alan that day, and so I did. That's why I believe Joe, because Joe has never paid a hitman. He's always fell short of doing that. So, anyways. She says she hardly knew her brother. Then later in the episode, she says she was surprised he became a police officer because he was really shy. She has no. I mean, don't get me. I'm yes. I have immense problem with her. I mean, look, when I listen to her talk, and I listen to her, I mean, I just get the whole impression from her that she is trying to put forth an image. That for her, it's all about an image that she wants people to see. And yeah, she doesn't strike me as particularly honest or any of those things. Yeah. Story constantly changes. So Carol is definitely in hot water as well. But I honestly think Jeff Lowe and that guy Allen should be up for charges of, perpetrating a fraud. I mean, I don't believe there ever was a murder for hire. And this nonsense about how they gave testimony in exchange for immunity, they gave testimony to a fake crime that they made up and made themselves immune to any prosecution of the said crime. I can't believe the feds were stupid enough to fall for it and not see through him. This guy's a con man. I mean, oh, jeez. Oh, my God. Anyway, but it is what it is, I guess. So, yeah, that's, it's weird, but this new episode was interesting. I'll just say that. I mean, we find out that Joe is actually talking to old bandmates now from inside of prison, and they are actually orchestrating like GoFundMe's or fundraisers, and they're getting putting money on the books for Joe, and so Joe is getting is able to use some of the fame that he's getting from this documentary. He's able to get it a little bit because he's, like I said, he's talking to some of his old bands, a couple of his old bands that he used to work with and stuff. And so he's having some connection with the outside world, and he kind of knows what people are out there saying and that sort of stuff. So, that was another interesting thing to find out in this. So, what's the charges like in the U.S. for animal abuse? Well, I think on that level, I don't know. I mean, he had something like 20 charges against him. I think he only ended up with something like 80 years or something. But I got to imagine a lot of that was the murder for hire thing. But I don't know. I'd have to look at how it was, what charges he was found guilty of, and what the sentencing was on them. Look, I actually don't think this one's going to come back to bite Joe. If anything, well, it's going to bite him in one way. It's going to cut both ways for Joe. Number one, it's going to cut one way to expose the fact that he was terrible to the animals, that he was inhumane, most likely. And so it's going to cut that way. But it's also going to cut the other way, where this thing has shown that Jeff Lowe came in and orchestrated the whole murder for hire thing. And so he may be able to at least dodge the taint of that, because, like I say, Joe was always all talk until Jeff Lowe comes along with his would-be hitman, Allen. So it appeared it appeared they were all facing charges of some sort, and all started talking to save their own butt. Uh, I think I think so, in a sense. I think that's why Jeff Lowe was so busy to hang, or so eager to hang Joe, um, because he had, stuff going on from con man stuff he'd been doing, and he was in trouble in hot water and other places, and so it would have, if the feds needed help getting Joe, and he could help do that and get the zoo at the same time, win-win for Jeff Lowe. So he got 22 years. So I would imagine the murder for hire thing is at least 5 years of that. So, if it is only 22 years, it would suggest that it depends how many charges he was found guilty on, how many charges they were able to prove. Jeff Lowe was in major trouble in Las Vegas. Yes, he was. She should really meet Pam of God. Doesn't Carol Baskin do the exact same thing as Joe Exotic, except she had more money and resources? Like, yeah, he put down cats by shooting them, but that was probably because he had no money for euthanasia. Well, that's probably true. That's why the allegations about Doc Antle, about the fact that Doc Antle was breeding tiger kittens and stuff because they're so cute and they're a huge draw and a big money earner. But then after 6 months, when those cubs become big enough to be seriously dangerous and not as cute, that he was then gassing them. I mean, these are only allegations, but if they're true, that's shocking. That's absolutely shocking. So Johnny was live tonight, folks. If you guys don't know, Johnny or Ripper on YouTube was live tonight. He's been doing a series of videos following up the Tiger King, looking into Carol Baskin and looking into her potential cover-up of her ex-husband's death, Don Lewis. He's been uncovering some very, very interesting things, folks. So if you haven't heard of the coverage he's doing over there on his channel, that's Ripper on YouTube, go over and check him out. He's got, I think, about around 10 videos now that he's done. Some of them are long. Some of them are around, 20 to 30 minutes. Some of them are, maybe between 5 and 7 minutes. But they're all interesting, and he's showing things that show that Carol Baskin's being dishonest and those sort of things. So I encourage everybody to go check him out. He's got some real interesting stuff he's digging up about the Don Lewis cold case that I think everybody should see. If you watched the show from last night, many of the workers said some of the shootings were out of meanness or because they needed room. Yeah, that's what I was saying. Some of the workers in the show and stuff said some very shocking things in this final episode that led me to believe that the charges against Joe regarding, the PETA and the regarding the animal charges, I believe those were probably had merit after listening to some of the things I heard in this final episode. Please don't let the mullet come back into style. Football is staying healthy. The whole Tiger King is just insane. The police screwed up his entire investigation and can't ever start back to as day one. Yeah. A lot of the tigers that Joe shot were healthy, not old or sick. Backstabbers are no better. Did that final episode air on TV? Netflix. It's now the 8th episode. of the first season. So you can go check it out. It said in the documentary that Doc's place was raided and that they didn't find any evidence that he had been killing cubs. So there you go. But something tells me that this talk didn't come from just nothing. I don't know. We'll see. Because that's the one thing Doc Antle said in the documentary. He said eventually the cat grows up, or the kitten, the little cub or whatever grows up, and it just becomes another mouth to feed, and it's just a certain amount of meat per day that has to be procured and that they have to come up with. So whatever was on Netflix, was that it? Whatever was on Netflix. I'm sorry, Mandy. You could try to say that maybe one more time or a different way. Shelby, yes, there was an additional episode last. Yeah, it came out yesterday on Sunday. It is for now, but as I said earlier in this episode, there's clearly a plan for more, because when they were talking to Mr. Finley, who was Joe's first husband, he indicated that he wasn't allowed to show how his tattoo had been finished because there was going to be a reveal at some later point. So that tells me they have plans for another episode drop, or another, group of episode drop or something. So yeah, it's interesting. But and the other thing about Jeff Lowe, folks, is, man, that guy is just so slimy. I mean, I guess it's fine because the woman he's with is fine with it. But man, dude, did you guys see that nanny? For those of you that watched it, and whoa, yeah, I was just like, oh yeah, all right, okay. You just go to Tiger King and it's episode 8, Mandy. That's it. It used to be 4. It used to be only 7 episodes. Now it's 8. Yes, but yesterday they put out an 8th episode for season 1. Okay, there we go. I said enough times, right? I don't need to say it anymore. Just watched the TMZ special on it tonight. Yeah, and what was that all about, Jamie? That nanny was smoking hot. Yep, right up Jeff Lowe's alley, right? And what made me laugh too was his wife. When they brought up that nanny, his wife was all, she's hot. Like, I was just like, oh, like, okay. The ongoing investigations of all of them? Ah, okay. Don't tempt the Ouija. I might ask again for the chat. So that's interesting. The ongoing investigation into Carol Baskin, I imagine, and Doc Antle, and probably even Tim Stark. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. It seems clear to me that these folks weren't really, you know, they weren't really. I mean, I know they love the cats, but all I see in these people, Doc Antle, Joe Exotic, and even and Carol Baskin, is that they are exploiting the pull and the attraction that these big cats have on people, and they are exploiting it like a drug. And for me, that's the huge problem. Um, they're doing it in a very underhanded way, if but I don't know. That's the way I feel about it, and so I feel they needed. If the government would have became involved and probably started regulating it at a much sooner date, maybe it wouldn't have got so out of hand, and it might have become something proper. For people to be able to go and visit these zoos with these big cats. Um, but the way it is right here, I mean, you see Doc Antles over there using these cats to create his own personal harem. You see what Joe was doing a similar thing with his, turning, finding straight men to become his husbands. And you see with Carol Baskin over there, I mean, she's brainwashing people to come. The pull of the tigers is so great, and the big cats is so great. Carol is able to get people to pay her to come and work for her and to help out with the big cats. I mean, that should tell you they're exploiting these big cats like a drug, and they're not doing it they're not doing it very responsibly. And that's how I feel about it. Even sheriff in Tampa doesn't believe Joe was trying to do murder for hire. I agree, Jamie. I just don't believe he was. I believe he talked a lot of smack, but when it came to putting up the money for it, he never did. I believe he didn't know what that $3,000 was for that day when Jeff told him to go get it out of the register and give it to Alan. I don't believe Joe knew what it was. Jeff is looking for his own Sister Wives series. That could very well be one strand. You may have the nail right on the head there. Seriously, though. Yeah. If Joe, let's see, Carol Baskin brainwashed her current husband, Howard, whatever, or Howard is just easily tamed. I think Howard may be the type of guy that's easily tamed. If Joe would not have pushed on Carol logo BS, bet he would be free today. I agree. I agree on that. His ego got the better. But in that same token, if Carol hadn't pushed too much in the settlement and started asking for the deed to Joe's mom's house, this all could have gotten settled. So when she ends up in jail for the murder of her ex-husband, she can think back on how she wanted, because she was so miserable, she wanted to claim the deed of Joe's mother's house. Because of that, this thing ended up getting out of control. A documentary came out, and if she ends up sitting in jail, she can blame herself for being a greedy cow. Come on, let's be serious. This is just a little higher up than TLC's Myrtle Beach trailer trash. Well, I agree. It's very trashy and very nutty and eccentric and any other word for bizarre and odd that you can think of. It is. He is pussycat whipped. Yeah, I think you may be right about that. Yeah, the parents' house. Absolutely. She's going to look back. One day when her ass is sitting in a prison cell, she's going to look back and go, God, if I hadn't have asked for the deed to his mother's house, this all would have gotten settled. Joe wouldn't have ever have had any need for Jeff Lowe. The documentary wouldn't have been as compelling. I mean, she's going to look back on it and be able to trace it back to that point where if, she could have prevented an entire series of events had she been reasonable and not asked for the deed to Joe's mom's house. So the FBI could easily get the cell phone data from the NSA as the mass data gathering had started by then. Let's see. Got to be a better con. Man, it's a whack. So it's, I don't know. For me, it's pretty obvious here that Jeff Lowe is a slimy guy. Very, very slimy. Joe's downfall was ever having any faith in Jeff Lowe. The moment he turned to Jeff Lowe, that was the beginning of the end for Joe. And the reason why Joe had to turn to Jeff Lowe is because Carol Baskin was being unreasonable. And because she was being unreasonable, this documentary ended up being highly compelling, and lots of people are watching it. And I think she's going to be seeing the inside of a jail cell sooner rather than later, probably sometime within the next couple of years. Because the stuff, like I said, the stuff's already coming out, and I once again will advise everybody, go over to Ripper's YouTube channel and look at the stuff he's been digging up the last week. I don't think Carol's going to be able to keep a lid on this anymore. This documentary, the popularity of it, she's not going to be able to keep a lid on her dark secrets anymore. So that's where it's at. Jamie. You shouldn't say stuff like that, dude. I'm waiting for it to come up in StreamYards here so that I can put it on the screen. Takes a second. I don't know why it has such a delay. And it may be. That may very well be there, Jamie. So, yeah, this Tiger King thing is, I believe these people are nuts, but at the same time, I found the whole thing fascinating. And I've remained intrigued by it. Instead of just moving on from it, I've been lingering on it a bit because of this whole Carol Baskin thing with her ex-husband, Don Lewis. And the fact that, well, like I said, my buddy Ripper is digging up some, and a bunch of the wrecking crew, members of the wrecking crew and stuff, are digging up some phenomenal things. And digging up some things that are really beginning to implicate Carol Baskin, and in a big way. And so it's yeah. No worries, buddy. No worries. I understand. Yeah. Carol Lee Kaczynski. Yeah, there you go. He'd be a good lawyer for her. Oh, it's not only the interviewing, but yeah, he's uncovering some very, very interesting information. That is for sure. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things about this Tiger King thing. I know how some people feel, and I know some people are having trouble getting through the beginning episodes, but the Tiger King really starts to get interesting right around episode 3, in my opinion. It's when they start talking about Carol Baskin's ex-husband Don Lewis, and they start talking about the copyright, infringement by Joe on Carol Baskin and Big Cat Rescue, and once those things start coming in, it all starts to heat up, and yeah, that's when the Tiger King really, really starts to get interesting. Like I said, again, though, I mean, I'm just fascinated by these people. They're fascinated, but at the same time, disappointed in a lot of ways. I mean, I guess I'm disappointed in the way that these people are exploiting these cats, acting like they love these cats, but exploiting these cats for their own gain, using these cats like a narcotic to keep people addicted and hanging around. I mean, to me, it's quite disturbing the way Doc Antle operates, with the way he brings the women in, and the cats being the big draw, and then if the women want to continue to be, one of the big names working with the cats, they have to get like a boob job, and they have to do whatever little cosmetic things, and stuff like that. I mean, I found all that to be pretty disturbing, to be perfectly honest. For all of Doc Antle's talk of, peace and love and blah 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 whatever, and vegetarian living, you have to be a vegetarian if you live there, only the cats eat meat, and I mean, it's just, I mean, for me, I mean, that's fine, that's great, for people that want to live that lifestyle, but for me, it bothers me that he determines that everybody has to live that lifestyle. That's really, for me, what bothers me. But anyways, it just, to me, the whole way everything becomes a cult, when it comes to these big cat people, it's like everything becomes a cult, and that is a very, very worrisome thing for me, to be perfectly honest. I do believe the workers at all the sites are doing it for the right reasons. I believe the workers are actually good-hearted people. Saf got her arm ripped off and was more worried about the bad image it would present for the zoo, and potentially the death of the cat or the tiger and stuff. Right? Yep. Saf was more worried about those things, and that's true. Why is this not? There it goes. So far, that is a bit strange about the augmentations. Yeah, I mean, that's just, to me, that's just bizarre that, that needs to be done. I mean, it's supposed to be like this, all natural vegetarian, and kind of, I don't know. It just strikes me as, Doc Antle just strikes me as, a cult leader, and part of the benefits of running the cult is he draws in these very, as you heard in the documentary, virgin women, or virgin-esque women, or very inexperienced young ladies, and turns them into his wives. I mean, I'm not here to say it's right or wrong. I'm just here to say it strikes me as a little bit concerning, you know? So. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sure I don't know what you're talking about. So. Let's see. First time I heard Doc speak, I was like, cult leader you are. Yeah, RDRR, there you go. Sharon likes to make her little jokes. His pride as in the pride of lions. Yeah. Ha 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 ha. So yeah, I mean, so obviously we've got more to come. As I said, I gleaned that from watching this episode because I know there's going to be at least one more episode, but I imagine it's probably going to be a group of episodes that drop at some point. Because, like I said, Mr. Finley, Joe's first husband, alluded to the fact that there will be a reveal of his finished tattoo right above his junk. And it didn't happen in this episode, so that means it's going to have to happen later. So I anticipate at least one, but possibly maybe as many as 4 episodes later, or maybe or maybe they're planning another entire season of 7 or 8 episodes. I don't know. We'll see, but there's definitely going to be something more because Mr. Finley alluded to a reveal of his finished tattoo, covering up the property of Joe Exotic tattoo he had above his junk. Just came in from Ripper. Ripper's live ended. Did he start a second one? Did he start another one? Anyway, okay. See you. Good night, Mandy. Seems to be too much like hard work to keep all the women happy. Now when you have those tigers and big cats, the big cats keep the women happy. You see? That's what he's doing. He's using that effect of the big cats on people, particularly these women, and it's like a narcotic. And he just, he's able to use that to get what he wants. So yeah, that's mainly what I wanted to say about the extra episode that came out. It's interesting. I can't wait to see what's going to go down in terms of Jeff. I hope somebody does give that idiot a reality show. So him and his wife and their nanny can look like idiots on television. Oh my God, I think I would love that. So I actually really, really, really want to see that happen and hope it does happen. Anyways, that guy's a tool. That guy was the biggest part of orchestrating this so-called murder for hire, which I don't ever believe was a murder for hire. I mean, Jeff was in control of all the aspects. It was his right-hand man was the supposed hitman. It was, just everything was in his control. I don't believe it ever was a murder for hire. It is a smoke and mirrors attempt at a murder for hire, or a smoke and mirrors illusion of murder for hire, and orchestrated to send Joe to a place where he couldn't get in Jeff's way. That's pretty obvious of that's what happened here. So I am going to say goodnight, folks. Looks like One Strand is already saying goodnight as well. So good night, One Strand. And I know Sharon Sunshine's out there, so good night, hen. I know you're there. For those of you who don't know, in Scotland, when you say hen, that's just like, a reference to a lady. So, anyway. And Jamie Hart, good night, hen. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding, Jamie. You know I love you, dude. Anyway, let's see. We're not going to discuss Mr. Jet Ski's life jacket size. Mr. Jet Ski's life jacket size. Who's Mr. Jet Ski, and what are you talking about his life jacket size? Is Jamie buying purses and shoes? Anyways, all right, folks, it's been fun. Hope you guys had fun. I did. You know, this last episode was interesting. Hopefully, in the next week or so, we'll get more people watching it, and get more people going over and checking out what, you know, all the good stuff that One Strand and many of the other members of the Wrecking Crew that are working with Johnny over there on the Don Lewis cold case, doing phenomenal stuff over there. So everybody get your butts over there and check out what's going on over on Ripper's channel. He's doing some good work. I'm going to go check out this video on Rubber Ducky's channel today and see what's going on there. So everybody be good. Observe your COVID-19 protocols. Everybody out there, be safe. Get a mask, bandana, something to cover your nose and mouth when you go out. Do it, folks. Let's flatten the curve. If you haven't already, please hit subscribe, and we'll see you.